am president of the club. We're glad you are here or tuning in to this forum, the oldest continuous free speech forum in the country. Today we will hear from Michelle Miller Adams, whose recent book, The Power of a Promise, Education and Economic Renewal in Kalamazoo, is a first-hand account of a bold experiment in that southwestern Michigan city that is filling public school classrooms and reshaping a community. The Kalamazoo Promise is a pledge by a group of anonymous donors to pay up to 100% of tuition at any of Michigan's state colleges or universities for graduates of Kalamazoo's public high schools. The program was unveiled in Kalamazoo at a Board of Education meeting in November of 2005. The hope of the promise is that it will not only improve the educational attainment of students, but also give a significant economic boost to the city. Kalamazoo has suffered the loss of thousands of manufacturing jobs and the downsizing of the drug manufacturer Pfizer. Also, its school district faced 2 decades of cuts and declining enrollment. By April of last year, it was reported that the Kalamazoo Promise Scholarship Program delivered a $10 million stimulus to the community in its first 3 years, despite the lackluster economy. The program is also credited with increased economic optimism in Kalamazoo and an increase of interest by developers. After the first year of the program, the district's classrooms surged by 1,000 new students, a 10% jump. The program has sparked national attention in other cities such as Pittsburgh and Denver and El Dorado, Arkansas, and they have implemented similar promise programs. Ms. Miller Adams points out in her book that while the concept seems simple, its implications are not. The Kalamazoo Promise touches on issues as diverse as regional governance, urban sprawl, and racial segregation. And although the program has been met with enthusiasm in most quarters, it also has elicited suspicion and resentment on occasion. Ms. Miller Adams is an expert on community building and economic development. She has her doctorate in political science and a master's in international affairs from Columbia University, and is currently a visiting scholar at the W.E. Upjohn Institute for Employment Research. And she's an assistant professor of political science at Grand Valley State University in Allendale, Michigan, one of the schools at which Kalamazoo students can use their scholarships. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michelle Miller Adams.
Thank you so much, Jan. I'm honored to be here as part of the Law Day Forum when Mary Groth from the Bar Association called to ask if I'd be able to give a talk about the Kalamazoo Promise as part of this event. I was thrilled to accept, but I was also curious about what made Cleveland's legal community so interested in this program. I've since learned about the multiple and long-standing connections between the Bar Association and the area's urban school districts, and I've been impressed to see that so many different sectors of the community recognize the critical role that education plays in Cleveland's future. I'm especially glad to see some groups of students who are here today, and I look forward to speaking with you all in a little bit of a smaller group after our talk. I come from a much smaller town. Cleveland is roughly 5 times larger than Kalamazoo, but the challenges facing our communities are similar, as Jan just mentioned. Like Cleveland, Kalamazoo's population has been shrinking as businesses, jobs, and residents have moved to the suburbs or to other states. As a result, the urban center of both regions has become home to a greater proportion of the area's poor families, and the school districts that serve this inner-city population face a whole set of challenges that more suburban, middle-class districts do not. These challenges begin with lower levels of preschool attendance, meaning that more students begin school at a disadvantage, and they are sustained all the way through the K through 12 years, culminating in higher dropout rates, lower high school graduation rates, and less of a likelihood of going on to college. Coupled with these academic challenges are social and cultural factors that impede the path to higher education, including a lack of role models, little support in navigating the college application and financial aid process, and peers and sometimes parents who don't see college as a valued goal. I'm here to speak with you about a development that has fundamentally changed this landscape in Kalamazoo, the Kalamazoo Promise. As Jan mentioned, I have found it to be a surprisingly simple idea with surprisingly far-reaching and complex implications. I've had the privilege of watching and writing about my community as it responds to the introduction of the promise, and last year published the first comprehensive account of the promise called The Power of a Promise. If you want to look at copies, there's some on a table outside, and it's also available for our radio audience through Amazon and the Upjohn Institute website. I've also had the opportunity to work with other communities as they develop similar programs, and I've been involved in the creation of a national network called PromiseNet that brings folks together to share information about these efforts. There's going to be a conference coming up in June in Kalamazoo, the third annual PromiseNet conference, and if there are people in Cleveland who are interested in learning more about what other communities are doing and getting a lot of information in a short time span, you might want to think about coming. You can find more about the conference at promisenet.us. What I'd like to do today are three things. I'd like to briefly explain the concept of the Kalamazoo Promise. I'd like to report on its early results, especially regarding its impact on the school district. And I'd like to offer some thoughts about how the program and others like it help even the playing field for low-income youth and some of the challenges involved in that important task. I'm going to make sure to leave plenty of time to answer your questions and help you think through some of the nagging issues that might come up through the course of my talk, and also whether and how a promise-type program might be appropriate in Cleveland. In deference to our radio audience, I've left my usual collection of PowerPoint slides and handouts at home. So instead of giving you a lot of data, I'm going to rely on telling you some stories. If you would like to see some of the data that my colleagues and I are collecting about the Kalamazoo Promise, please visit the Upjohn Institute website. And I also have a personal website that has various PowerPoint presentations on it where I continually update data. I'd like to begin by going back in time to November 11th, 2005. I had just dropped my daughter off at preschool, and I was in the car paying only a little attention, listening to the local public radio station. I thought I heard that the school superintendent had announced a new scholarship program for every graduate of the district. And to be quite frank, this made no sense to me. Like many of you, I've been involved with higher education in one way or another for many years, in my case for 30 plus years now. And I knew that scholarships are something you get if you demonstrate academic merit or if you have a pressing financial need. The idea of scholarships for everyone was quite simply something I had never encountered. This was my introduction to the Kalamazoo Promise and the moment that launched me into more than 4 years of research, which I can say without a doubt has been the most interesting journey that I've been on in my life. So to recap and reiterate a couple of points that Jan made, what is the Kalamazoo Promise? As she said, it's funded by a group of anonymous donors. On the Kalamazoo Promise website, they are described as, quote, a small group of very nice people, with very nice capitalized. It covers full tuition and fees at any public Michigan college or university. There are 44 to choose from all of our wonderful community colleges on up to Grand Valley State, where I teach, Michigan State, University of Michigan. And while scholarships are neither merit-based nor needs-based, there is one hard and fast requirement, and that is residency, enrollment, and graduation from a Kalamazoo public school. The scale slides around a bit. If you attend Kalamazoo Public Schools and reside in the district from kindergarten through 12th grade, you will receive a 100% scholarship covering your tuition and mandatory fees at any of those colleges or universities. If you start Kalamazoo Public Schools in 9th grade and you attend from 9th through 12th grade, your scholarship is worth 65% of the cost. And there's a sliding scale in between. My daughter actually started Kalamazoo Public Schools after I started this book in the 1st grade, so she will be eligible for a 95% scholarship. Students can only attend a school they're admitted to, of course. This is not a ticket to admit everyone to the University of Michigan. But if they are admitted, their tuition is covered up to 130 credits, which is what it takes in most cases to get a bachelor's degree. There's some important features of the program that signal both its flexibility and its generosity. First, funding for those 130 credits can be accessed anytime within 10 years after high school graduation, which creates a tremendous amount of flexibility for students who maybe want to start at a community college, take some time off, go back, work on a bachelor's degree.